Okay, excuse me about that, but we'll continue. So that's how I met Sheikh Jamal. And Sheikh Jamal is a Shadaliya Sheikh, just so you know his situation. He had been raised in Palestine as a Rafai. He had his grandfather was a very well-known Rafai Sheikh, and he had been raised as a Rafai. And then later, in his 20s, I believe it was, he was sent to, he believed at that time, the current Qutb, the world Qutb, and who was a sheikh that was in, I think it was Syria. And he went to study with that sheikh, who was a very, very old man at that time, maybe, into his, at least 100 years old. And he began his study of Shadaliya line. And the Shadaliya have a little different approach in healing and in Sufism, because they work directly with the name Allah before they work with the qualities. So in most tariqah, you do the qualities first, and then you work with the name Allah. But this worked the opposite. In Shadaliya, you work first with the name Allah. So that's his story. And after taking hand with him, I came back to the U.S. I mean, I was in the U.S., but I came back to my school, and I turned my healing school over to the Shadaliya Sufi order. I took on Sudi as my guide, and I asked to make tawbah for all the mistakes that I had made, and began the process of learning and walking through the stations of the way that the Shadaliya teach. Now, many of you know, I'm sure, that there are 7 stations, right? The 7 stations of the self, the heart, and the soul, and the secret, and the hidden, and the most hidden, and of course the complete knowledge. And these 7 stations are the 7 major stations. And of course, in Shadaliya line, those are broken into 7 substations. So each of the major 7, there's 7 stations of the nafs, of the self, and 7 stations of the heart, like that. And so my goal at that time was, I was very much wanting to reach the world of unity, or Haqiqah. I wanted to reach enlightenment. It was in my heart to experience those states. I had been taught that was the greatest endeavor a human being could make. And that was where I was striving to attain, was to reach that type of knowledge and consciousness. And I found that Sidi was a very, very wonderful guide for that. And I spent the next few years studying and walking deeply in that path. Later became Muqaddam and then Murshid in that process. And today, again, I'm just looking at some of the questions here. My job here in the West is we have several thousand murids around the United States, in South America, and in Central America, Mexico, Argentina. And I work with sort of holding them and helping them. My goal on all of them is very simple. It's to, first of all, make sure that they're healthy, because if they're not healthy, they can't really do their practices. Secondly, I want them to be holy, meaning I want them to be walking on the path and walking to God and not losing their way. And then thirdly, that they're really doing the deep healing and purification to allow them to enter and go as far as they can to work towards reaching Haqiqah and those states of consciousness. So to sort of oversee that process for the people around this area. Personally, my greatest happiness, honestly, is when I see people turn to Allah, and I see people leave the world for Allah. So I do a lot of time teaching in the United States, particularly about Sufism and about healing. And I travel extensively to many, many cities, and I teach about that, as well as running the university here, which teaches spiritual healing and Sufism. And I thought I might just take a few minutes to talk to you about the healing work that we do here at the university, and that I personally am involved with, because I think it's of interest. But there is a Quranic saying that when one becomes a friend of Allah, awliya, that one becomes the eyes and the ears and the hands of God. And I think that this state is a state that is potentially possible for people to reach, and that people can walk to that state of consciousness through purification of the veils and walking those 7 stations. And I think that healing work is one of the greatest ways of learning walking, because you see, a lot of people are working on they're doing their dhikr and things, but I don't often always see that people make great transformation in their lives. And with the healing work, you see, if you're sick and you heal something, then you really know that you've made transformation. So it's not just that, well, maybe I did it, maybe I did not do it. But when you heal something, you really know that you've transformed something, because there's a physical change in the body. So it's a very powerful way of learning purification work. Now, I like to teach something we call spiritual healing, and I spend a great deal of time with that and get a great deal of joy out of working with people with spiritual healing. Well, what is that, spiritual healing? Well, spiritual healing is very simply 2 things. It's the ability to find in the person's consciousness what is causing illness to occur. And then secondly, it's the applying in that place of consciousness either the correct dua or the correct ayah or the correct divine name, that either of these will create a very deep place of healing inside the body. So, for example, I'll give you a story about this. A lady came to one of my workshops with congestive heart failure. And congestive heart failure is a major, what you call, the heart is enlarged. And in her case, it was extremely enlarged. A normal heart is about this big, maybe. Well, her heart was like this. It was much, much larger, maybe 3 to 3 times the size of a normal heart. And she was dying. And she was dying of congestive heart failure. Now, the medical tests revealed that her cardiac ejection fraction, which is a test of the heart, was down below like 20%, which is essentially means that they're end stage, and that, you know, that they're going to die within the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And at that point, she made a decision. She'd heard about Sufism and heard about the healing, and she came to explore it with me. And when I asked her why she was sick, she told me a very, in a way, sad story about she had been a caretaker at a Christian monastery in New Mexico, and she had had some major issues with the priest. They had some kind of problems between them, and she was living in a little cabin, and apparently the toilet, the ground, the septic system, which is where the toilet material is accumulated, had backed up, and there were gases that were coming out of the ground. They were calling them swamp gases, and she believed that she had inhaled these swamp gases and that it had poisoned her heart, and that was why she was in congestive heart failure and she was dying. But you see, when we began to explore the inner reality of her heart disease, it had something completely different to do, which was it had to do with the fact that she was extremely angry and brokenhearted over her treatment by the minister or the priest. She had felt betrayed, and she had felt rejected, and she had felt hurt that somebody who was a man of God would treat her that way. And that she was so angry about it and so hurt by it that she actually went into heart failure. So what we found was deep inside of her, that behind all the swamp gases and everything else, that the real issue was that she had been deeply hurt. Okay, when she found this place of being deeply hurt, we then looked in as deep as we could. What was the reason that she was so hurt? And it had to do with the quality al-wakil, which is the trust, which was that she had lost trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she had lost trust in herself and lost trust in the people of God. It was an issue of wakil, of trust. So what we did is we began to work with the name Ya Allah al-Wakil, and we began to work with using that quality to wash away the hurt, the broken-hearted place and distrust within our heart. And how we did that was using dhikr, Ya Allah al-Wakil, and asking and praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring in that quality. We ask Allah to send that quality. We did dhikr, Ya Allah al-Wakil, until we felt that quality starting to come in. We could feel it. And then as the quality entered into her heart, very, very deep inside her heart, in that soul where she had given up and lost trust and was dying because she had lost trust, the quality came in and it washed out the images of the memories, and it washed out the feelings and the pain, and all the places that she'd given up became discharged, in which they left her. Okay, and this is called takhliya. It's the cleaning. It cleaned out all the wound, the psychological, spiritual, emotional wound inside of her heart, and it was replaced with the quality al-Wakil, and later other qualities as well. The light from those qualities came in and strengthened her heart and came in. So now she wasn't brokenhearted. Now for the first time she felt she had trust again. And she felt that she believed again, al-Mu'min, and things like this. It came in, these new qualities. And they filled up, they beautified her heart. And the results were fascinating, which was that shortly following the course, which in the next 90 days, she happened to start to feel better immediately. She had her repeat cardiac ejection fraction shortly after that, I think 60 to 90 days later. And this massive heart had completely returned to normal. So this is the power of working with the divine names and working with dua and things like this to bring forth this deep healing inside of the heart. And this is the spiritual healing work that personally I do. So today, most of my work is really caring for people, helping new people to discover Sufism through healing. A lot of the students that I see are people who are sick. And also I see a lot of spiritual seekers in the West who have given up on, sort of the Eastern techniques, maybe Buddhism or Hinduism, or Judaism, or things like this, people who are looking for something different, and they're seeking either a path of love, or they're seeking spiritual healing. And once they experience it and they see the life changes, they very often take bayat and then enter into the Sufi order and begin their training to become first, learn the path, to many of them embrace deeply Islam, and learn the Sharia, and they learned the Sunnah, and they walk deeper and deeper with the Sufism and the Sharia and Tariqah and Haqiqah together until they reach their arrival. So I hope this is of value to all of you. And the only final piece that I personally have to say is that my own feeling about this, all Sufism and all Islam, is that it's about love. And that when we take the love out of it, whether it's about Sufism and we practice it more from dhikrs, but we have no love, or we do our Islam and we're practicing our Sharia and our Sunnah and reading Quran, but we don't do it with love and we don't do it with mercy and meaning, I think that we lose the very foundational inner aspects of what these teachings are about. So for me, I always look at these things. I look first, how is our connection to Allah Most High? Secondly, is there mercy and compassion in how we hold things? And then finally, and most importantly after that, is love. Are we really holding love in our hearts? Are we practicing love? Are we caring for others with love? And is love an essential part of our practices and what we do? So thank you all very much. I hope that gives you some insight from over here in the United States. I wish all of you the very best over there. Inshallah, maybe one day I'll come out to see people there. And I send you my salams, and I send you my love, and wish all the best for you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Allah Hafiz.